All right, welcome back to episode 4 of No Bull with Noble, with me, Ryan Noble. And today we have Mary Armani coming on the podcast. Thanks again for
I love the name, man.
For coming in. Right,
it's a
great.
good name.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
One of my buddies, I did an Instagram contest.
Okay.
And people were commenting names, and one of my buddies commented this one. I thought it was good.
It's a good name
because it's it's not directly on real estate, but it sort of gives like a. Like, we don't talk about bullshit here. It's just
catchy.
We say how it is.
It's catchy.
And it works.
So it's going to be my kind of podcast then.
Oh, it's going to be.
Okay.
You can talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
But I guess we can start by talking about sort of who you are and where you're coming from. Because you've been in the business for a very long time.
Long time.
What is that, like 18?
17, 18 years now.
It's crazy.
Flies by, man.
When did you start?
38. So I started when I was like 22, around there, 21 years old.
Was it hard to...
It was extremely hard because social media didn't really exist. Like a lot of the newer realtors really have no idea how much of a benefit they have just having social media. Like it was just incredibly tough because you couldn't get your name out there. You had to do it like the old school way, door knocking or just talking to your sphere of influence. And it was just so hard to get started.
Yeah, and at the same time now, you could say it's easier, but it also gets sort of muddied down because there's so many people trying to do the same things.
Yes. So now the reason that I feel that it's difficult is because now you're able to see all of your competition, whereas before it was difficult because you had those realtors that were killing it and they had huge budgets to advertise on bus benches and in the newspapers and just anywhere they can because they had the money. And then newer agents like myself who were coming into the business, they didn't really have that money. So it was just difficult for them to get started, right?
Did you eventually buy bus ads and things like that? Or
Never did any of that.
Yeah.
Never did any of that. Even when social media started getting like pretty popular, I had no website. Like I was like really late to the game in that sense. But at the same time, real estate, social media hadn't really taken off as of yet. So myself, Paul Greenberg, I always shout out Paul Greenberg, Amy Youngren, there was a few realtors that kind of like started doing video and then we just kind of ran with it. And obviously it is where it is today, right?
So do you feel like you were early to the game with the social media because you saw people doing it?
No, that's the thing. There was nobody really doing it back then. So like we were one of the first ones on video. Like property videos, nobody was doing those before. Like I remember like doing property videos and I would have like people on my Facebook list and they would like make fun of me and they would be like, oh, who do you think you are? You think you're on TV making these videos? You know what I mean? Now they're common.
Yeah.
Like as a matter of fact, if you don't do them, it's a problem now, right?
Yeah. I feel like everybody's just going out and doing these property videos, but it's as much as it's hard to differentiate yourself from other realtors. If you've already established that base from the start, I feel like it's a lot easier because you're getting into it, you know what you're talking about, and people sort of have that trust in you already.
Yes, and the trust is important. The problem that kind of exists right now is that there's a lot of really, really bad realtors or realtors who are just not good people. Mm-hmm. And because of the way that they market themselves, they're very, very busy. So that's kind of like the crazy fact or the crazy aspect of real estate now, that you necessarily don't need to be that good at your job. You just need to be very good at marketing. And that's kind of been one of the things that it's getting to me. It's getting to me because, like, again, it doesn't affect me in any way just because I always do my own thing and I don't worry about what other people are doing. But it's like I know, like personally, realtors that are awesome and they're struggling because they don't market themselves. They don't know how to market themselves. And even if they did, they wouldn't be very good at it, right? So it's like, I feel bad for these people because it's like, they're great, but they're going to have to make changes in their business or they're going to be out of business.
Yeah, things are changing. They're adapting. And what do you think would be the best way for them to get themselves out there? Like if I'm someone who isn't very good on social media, I'm shy behind the camera, because I get that. Whenever I start a video, even doing this, I get nervous a little bit.
Are you nervous now?
Not once we started. Once we started, I'm good. But before, like the pregame nerves and trying to figure out what we're going to talk about and all of that, it gets me, especially with my videos, because for me, I'm learning as well, right? So as much as I'm trying to put my content out there, I want to know what I'm talking about so I can have that conversation later. And for someone who's been in the business for a long time and might be shy behind the camera, what do you think would be something that they could do to sort of put themselves out there more?
Listen, you just have to practice. And the thing is that you could film a bad video and you can look like an ass, but people have a very short memory. So tomorrow they're not going to remember it. And that's the honest truth. And everybody's like, well, what should I do? And I always tell them the same thing. Just start with Instagram stories. They're there for 24 hours. They disappear. And eventually I think that because those videos aren't broadcasted to like so many people as if, like, let's say you made a post, I think it's kind of a way where it would make you feel a little bit more comfortable slowly, and you'll get better over time.
Yeah, I guess that's true as well. Because I heard the same thing, but more posting every day. But thinking of doing an Instagram story is smarter because it goes away.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be something so formal. It doesn't have to be like so perfect. You know what I mean? That was one of my drawbacks, and it's still probably one of the things that I make mistakes on, where like I'm trying to make the perfect video, and I've been kind of slowly getting better at that. Just kind of saying, well, you know what, if the lighting isn't 100%, if the sound isn't 100%, or if, let's say, my background isn't amazing, who cares? Like, the important thing is the message.
Yeah.
That's the important part. That's what people want to hear. That's what people want to see.
Yeah, the person who's judging you most is yourself.
Yes.
Right? People look at the video, especially with social media, like they'll go on TikTok, they'll go on Instagram, they'll look at your video, and they'll scroll past it. They're not going to say, oh, you know, he doesn't look good today, he doesn't sound good today, the lighting is bad. Right?
Thankfully, because I feel like I've been looking like shit the last like 4 months.
No, you look great. Don't worry.
I'm a little bit better today.
Yeah, that's good.
I still need a haircut, but it's okay.
No, you're fine. Okay, it looks like you got a haircut.
Okay, no, Monday. I'm getting a haircut Monday. I always keep it clean.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we can get into. So you're a big mental health guy. And
yes.
We spoke about that a little bit before, and it's something that I wanted to touch on because it's such an important thing in everybody's lives, not only just realtors. But you started, and speaking of Instagram, you did a live show every Monday in the month of November, for November, to support mental health. And you had other realtors on there, and you were speaking to them about their mental health, and you were asking them how they were feeling, and they were asking how you were feeling. And it was so wholesome to watch and listen. Like, I watched every week, because people don't talk about mental health that much. They do. They'll post, not memes, but they'll post stuff on social media just with words, but they won't actually talk about it. And a lot of people won't talk about it in person. They won't talk about it on video. So what sort of gave you the confidence to want to talk about that and want to talk about it to these other people and have them open up?
It's the fact that nobody really talks about it. I always do something for Movember every single year. Mental health is something that I struggle with myself on a daily basis. I've been struggling with it for years, and it's kind of like I take it one day at a time. And November is kind of like a great time for me to spread that awareness, to share that awareness. And I thought it would be a great idea to bring some of these realtors, and not necessarily I brought realtors, but I didn't really want them to talk about real estate. I tried to make them talk about a lot of their personal experiences and what's happening personally in their lives. But it was more than anything, I just wanted people to see that, yes, there's people behind that camera. They have feelings. They have good days. They have bad days. And I just wanted them to be very transparent and open about it. And there was even like a few realtors that I reached out to do this, and they didn't want to do it. And I'm pretty sure that they didn't want to do it because it's really, really difficult to be honest.
Yeah.
And everybody's honest. But obviously, like, when they're not in control, like in this particular case, I would be in control because they would have no idea what questions I would be asking them. I feel that they didn't want to be part of that talk because they were afraid what I was going to ask them.
Right, because you ask them an important question that might hit home, and they almost don't want to tell you because it's so hard for them to open up about it. But
yes,
it depends on the situation.
And there's also, honestly, there's a lot of sheep in wolves' clothing. That's one thing that I really realize about real estate, especially with social media. There's a lot of people that they seem like they have it together. There's a lot of people that parade themselves as good people and good realtors, but truth of the matter is they're shit realtors. Truth of the matter is that they're scumbags. They're not nice people. Like, some of these people that have these big followings, I've called them, and they're just assholes.
Yeah.
Like just assholes. I just never understood why somebody, I get it that you may have a bad day. We all have bad days, and I'm sure that I've been an asshole to some people. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like you're calling them and you speak to them on more than one occasion, and they're always the same way, right? And that's when you kind of start to clue in. These people are not nice people, right?
Yeah.
So,
and with 70,000 agents in Toronto, like that's,
Yeah.
you're going to get those. You're going to get the good people, you're going to get the bad people, and you get a mix. But again, with the smoke screens of social media, right? You see these guys smiling and laughing and having, putting their houses up for millions of dollars, and here it is. Here I'm doing so well, I'm so successful. But like you said, you see them behind the scenes, and they might be miserable. They might be a dick. They might be
they're just
not a good person.
They're just not nice. And I just never understood why somebody would not be nice to somebody else. That's why, like, one of the things that I always try to teach my kids, and I always tell them that if somebody's not nice to you, just be nice to them. Because they might be having a bad day and you don't know what's happening in their life at that particular moment. You've been blessed, and that's why you feel good. So don't worry about how other people feel. Just you try to make that difference, right? And many times, like, they even say to me, well, what if somebody's mean to me? And I'm like, just be nice to them. Because maybe by you being nice to them, they're going to actually be nice back to you. And funny enough, my kids have actually told me on several occasions that, you know what I mean, kids that they had problems with before, they're actually friends with them now.
Oh, that's great.
It's, you know what I mean? It's a little bit harder because obviously kids, they're not like adults. They don't reason. It may take a little bit longer, but these are the kind of things that I feel that we should be teaching our kids. So when they're older, they have these life skills and they don't, you know what I mean? I'm sure you see it all the time. There's people that are just, they're not happy, man.
Yeah. And it goes back down to the simple terms. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Right? Because again, like you said, you don't know how someone's day is going. You don't know how someone's week is going. Something could be happening at home that might be an issue, and they're taking it out on.
And life is really tough now, right? Like just with everything, like everything's very, very expensive now. Just going to the grocery store is tough, man.
I saw in the news that there were that next year families of 4 are going to be spending $16,000 on just groceries itself, which is crazy. That's a lot of money.
I saw that too, and it was it's an increase of $1,500 over what people paid in 2022, which is like crazy, just because people are having a very hard time financially. And I think it's a good time though, because unfortunately in this country we just buy shit. That's all we do. We just buy shit. We spend money very irresponsibly, and like over the course of the last like year, 2 years, I've been like noticing how much like I've stopped buying a lot of stuff.
Like what?
Like just stupidity. Like let's say before I would go on these like big shopping sprees because I'm really into fashion. I love clothing. And it's like now, thank you. And now it's just like, I'm like, do I really need that pair of jeans? Do I really need those shoes? Like I still buy stuff, but I don't do it as often as I did before. Like just like now, like my mental, like my mind is kind of saying less is more, and I'm actually happier with less. It's crazy because I'm so much happier with less. It's like you just have to worry less. You know what I mean? And you're just, I don't know.
It's all in moderation.
Yes.
Right? I'm the same. I'm not, for example, I'm not a shoe person. Okay. Like I have a couple pairs of shoes, but I got, one pair of shoes for running, one pair of shoes for, sports, one for going out, one for this, and one for like flip flops, whatever.
It would make you sick coming to my shoe closet then.
Right. But that's the thing, right? Like these are things that I'm not spending that much money on because I don't need 100 pairs of shoes. I don't need one pair of shoes for every single occasion for every day of the week. And that might be something that, maybe I don't want to say like you got to cut back on, but finding those things in your life that you're spending not necessarily unnecessary money, but money that you could be saving and putting towards things that might be more important, like feeding your family and feeding your kids.
We do have to be a little bit more cautious because everything has gone up. It's going to continue to increase. The cost of living is just, it's just killing everybody. Like people like who have a mortgage, they're now paying anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 more per month than what they were paying before. That's how much interest rates have affected people's monthly payments. So that's obviously going to cut out a lot of the things that they used to do before. As an example, going to a weekly dinner or just doing leisure things or buying 2 or 3 pairs of shoes in a month. You know what I mean? These are the things that people are not going to be able to do. So I kind of look at it as a blessing for many families, because they're going to really realize that they didn't need these things to be happy. And all it is just, it's stuff. Like we've recently moved over the last few months, and we also like threw out a bunch of things that we just no longer use. And I kind of, I looked at all these things and I'm like, why did we buy this to begin with? Like it just made no sense. You know what I mean? So I think now with my family, myself, I'm being a little bit more cautious as to where I'm putting my money.
Right. So what are you doing are you building like a plan to sort of balance out where you're going to be spending your money, like a budget, or are you just sort of making conscious decisions for yourself?
Just making conscious decisions. Like if you need something, you need something. Like we just went to Costco the other day, and every time we go to Costco, it's a big bill.
Oh yeah. Costco's always,
it's a killer.
There was one time I went and someone bought one item. Like they had a shopping cart, they had one item, and I go, how's that? How can you go to Costco and buy one item? You're walking through the store and there's so many things you
I was
can
talking
buy.
about that with my wife. The couple in front of us, they bought like, I don't know, I think it was like 8 items. And I'm like, why would you even like go through this crazy lineup, this huge ordeal for like 8 items, right? As opposed to us, we had like 2 shopping carts, right? So yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, like I think that we need to really adjust a lot of the things that we do in our lives. And we just have to realize that in order to be happy, you don't need anything. You don't need anyone. It starts with you. You have to have that mental peace. And that's kind of what you should try to strive for. Because if you're happy with yourself, you're going to make everybody around you happy. Right. I'm not saying that we don't need anybody in the sense of like, let's say my wife, but I love my wife. I want her around. I need her around. But at the same time, if I'm not happy, I'm not going to make her happy either. So it's like, you have to take care of yourself. And I feel that a lot of the times we're so focused on taking care of our clients, our just everybody around us, except for ourselves. We just need to dedicate a little bit more time to making sure that we're okay up here. Right. Because without it, it's...
And so what are you doing to make sure that you're happy, that you're, you have that positive attitude all the time, and you, I guess, like, give it out to everybody else? Like, how do you figure out that you're happy? Like, what do you do? Do you have a routine? Do you go out?
It's a hard thing, man. It's a hard thing. The last 4 months have been mentally challenging for me. I've had a tough time mentally, and there really is no recipe. You just wake up. You sometimes go through the motions. You don't know how to fix things. And there's other days where you feel like, why didn't I think of this sooner? Or why didn't I, like, you know what I mean? Why did I feel confused the day before? And that's the problem with mental health, that a lot of people don't know how to like wrap their heads around it. So like in my particular case, I try my best to be happy. I wake up, I have kind of like a routine where I, you know what I mean, say all the things that I'm grateful for. And I think just gratitude in general is something that really helps us. Now, it's difficult because sometimes you wake up and you say, I'm grateful to be able to see and to breathe and to have my family and to have food on my table and a roof over my head. And then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? One of your kids will do something that drives you crazy, and all of a sudden you'll snap, right? Off, and it throws off your entire day, right? But you got to kind of like bring yourself back into alignment. And there's always going to be exterior forces that throw you off. You just have to align yourself like back up.
Right. Because that's something that I need to work on. Setting goals for myself. I've started to build a routine, but I think the biggest thing, like you said, you wake up, you write down what you're grateful for. I see a lot of people doing that, and I haven't really done that, and I don't really have the interest of doing it, but I see that there are so many benefits of doing it. Do you find yourself repeating what you're doing all the time, or do you try and find something new whenever you write those goals down?
I repeat a lot of the same things. I repeat that I'm grateful for my family every day, because it's like, why wouldn't I be grateful for them? But I do try to like, again, bringing my kids back into the conversation. It's something that I tell my kids all the time. You have to feel grateful. And I kind of, those little small things, I feel that I differentiate them with them. So it's like, if I'm talking to them about, look, guys, like, we're grateful that mommy made you guys dinner. Like, just get them to like realize those little things that they may be seeing as standard. Oh, you're the parent, you're supposed to feed me. Well, we technically are, but you should still be grateful for it.
Yeah, because there are a lot of kids, a lot of people, parents who don't have that.
Yes.
And like you said, it's the little things that your kids may not appreciate that you need to get them to understand might be a big deal for them compared to other people, right? That they're fortunate that, you know, they have a hardworking dad, you know, and they're going to be able to have a roof over their head for, you know, the rest of their lives. And that's you taking care of them. But it starts with them, you implementing into their heads that, you know,
and that's my biggest motivation, man. That's my biggest motivation is that they'll be okay for the rest of their lives. And I'm not saying that they need millions of dollars. I'm talking about like, I had a hard childhood. My parents, they always worked so hard, and all through, like, we're immigrants, right? So we came here. My dad cleaned bathrooms. Like, a lot of the times my father and my parents were working, and they did everything they possibly could. But we never didn't have, you know what I mean? Like, we never went hungry. I remember like moments where we would eat a lot of pasta, let's say, right? But at the time you really didn't think about it. But like, you look back now and it's like, yeah, those things happen. Or like the Christmases where you didn't receive the best gifts, or you received very little gifts, right? Again, at the time you didn't feel it, but you look back now and you realize that those things happen, right? Like, I never want to be in a position where I can't pay my rent, or I can't pay my mortgage, or I can't feed my kids. And that's my motivation each day. It doesn't matter if I did 10 deals or 1,000 deals. My motivation each day is I have to go out and I have to get it, because I got to bring it back to my family. So kind of like a lion, when he wakes up, he's like, I got to feed my family today. This is how I wake up every day. I don't think about how much money's in my bank account. I don't think about what I did yesterday. I think about today. I have to go in that jungle and I have to get it. And that's how I wake up every single day. And I'm relentless when it comes to it.
Yeah, that's really good. Because you're a hard worker. Like you mentioned before, you work until, 11, 12 at night, which has positive and negative effects, but it's having that that mindset, that mentality to wake up early.
I'm just a rare breed. I have to say I'm a rare breed. I'm a little sick in the head sometimes, where like, let's say, like, I just now in my life, I do everything that satisfies my soul. And sometimes I want to work 13, 14, 15 hours. Like, I want to do that. It makes me happy. And like I'm stressed. Like you see me at the end of the day and I look horrible. But I feel good inside, believe it or not. Like, I feel like, okay, you know what? I accomplished all these things. And I know that all this work that I did today is going to pay me in dividends down the road. And listen, real estate, it's a cyclical business. If you want to make money in 6 months to a year, you got to be working today. And that's why a lot of newer realtors, they get busy, because it's going to happen. You're going to eventually get busy. You're going to have 3 or 4 clients at a time, especially at the beginning. It's all new to you. And then all of a sudden you stop doing all those little systematic things that got you to be busy in the first place. And all of a sudden, as soon as your clients are like, you help them buy, you help them sell, you're like, you have no more clients. You're like, my business completely stopped.
Yeah. What do I do?
What do I do? Well, the reason why it stopped is because you went ahead and you stopped doing those little things that allowed you to get that business to begin with.
Right.
And these are the things that these newer realtors forget.
And how do you plan that? How do you go and, set your schedule a day in advance, a week in advance, just write down the small
days,
things?
weeks, months, and years, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's things that like have happened in the past year that I planned 15, 16 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just a matter of every single day and every single week and month trying to get a little bit closer to those goals, right? So I believe in planning. Like, I talk about it on social media all the time, like people that are buying, selling, like, again, and the more that you get into the business, you'll realize this, right? Like, there's a lot of buyers that are not ready today. They need to do things, that they need to do certain steps, whether it's cleaning up their credit, saving a little bit more for down payment, shifting money around because they're self-employed, and the way that they pay themselves is not the way that a bank would want them to pay themselves. A lot of these things take time, so you need to plan. But that goes to it goes the same in your business, right? And in your life. You got to plan the things that you want to happen. And if you don't plan, guess what you're doing? You're waking up every single day and you're winging it.
Yep. And I can admit I've done that, right? Because I'm so
we all do it. Like
new.
I do.
Yeah.
I do it sometimes myself. Like as much as I can sit here and say, "Oh yeah, I do this and I do that." Yes, I do it 98% of the times. But there's always those 2% of the times where like you don't plan it, and all of a sudden just things are not going systematically the way you would want them to. But that's your fault because you didn't plan it, right?
Right. Yeah. It's building those days so that you have a successful day. Yeah. Because I had a day a couple days ago where I didn't do much for the day and I didn't feel accomplished. But that's also, again, my own fault for not trying to plan it ahead of time and waking up in the morning and saying, okay, what am I going to do today? Rather than going back a week ago and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing Monday. This is what I'm doing Tuesday, and planning it out that way, because I feel like that's the most effective way. And it's something I've started to do. Before, I didn't really have a calendar. And so for the first couple of months, I had a calendar. And now, as of a couple of weeks ago, I'm starting to color coordinate my calendar, which I think is a big thing. And I think a lot of people do it. And I didn't even realize that a lot of people do it, because then you can balance things like meetings, for us doing things like showings and having your family time, and then mixing all that other stuff in between, because that's how we can manage our time and manage our business to be successful. And I'm sure
extremely hard. I said it before we started the podcast. I think that balance is bullshit. Maybe some people have achieved it. Maybe some people can achieve it. I can achieve it. I've been in the business for such a long time, and I just have never been able to achieve it. And it's always because you're busy. You have 24 hours in the day. That's it. So you can either do one thing or the other. It's hard to be in both at two places at one time, right? Yeah. That's why I feel that there's a lot of people that are starting teams and they're starting to kind of evolve the way that their businesses are set up, because I think eventually you need to evolve your business from being a salesperson to being an actual business. And a lot of realtors don't understand that. They're kind of like, well, what do you mean? I'm self-employed. I run my own business. I'm like, yes. I'm like, but if you went on vacation for a month, I'm like, are you really producing? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, are you selling real estate when you're on the beach for a month? No, I'm not. Well, you're a salesperson. You're only as good as your last sale. But if you actually have a business that can actually run when you're not there, then you have a business. There's a big difference, right? That does take a little bit of time. It does take a little bit of planning, and it's very difficult because in that planning phase, you're going nuts. And guess what? During those times, you're sacrificing personal time. You're sacrificing family time. It's just, that's why I'm saying that balance is very, very difficult to achieve.
But that's very smart. Like you said about the vacations and building your business, because I'm building my own self business, but with you've built a team for yourself, and you mentioned that sort of helps you with the business on the side. So
the team isn't where I quite want it to be, and just because I've been building it very slowly. So I had a team prior when I used to work at a brokerage. As you know, I own my own brokerage now. The team was very unsuccessful, and it was unsuccessful because of myself. The thought process of how I wanted to run the team was completely incorrect. The people that I chose for the team were completely incorrect, and I just had the wrong idea. But it's like anything in real estate. You have to go through the motions to realize what's right and what's wrong, because there's no book that tells us exactly how to do it the right way. It's like how I can best explain real estate is we can open up a coffee shop in the same exact building. Mine is here, yours is there. But my coffee shop will be completely different than your coffee shop. Yeah. And that's exactly what real estate is. We're all free and we all have the liberty to run our business whichever way we want. That's why I always on social media talk about the fact that realtors are not all the same. And that's why I feel that people need to do their homework when they select a realtor, because we all do things differently.
Yeah. So do you think it was a better move to open up your own brokerage and sort of do everything for yourself? Or do you feel like there are things you could go back on to
I opened up my brokerage for a different reason. Okay. So at the time when I opened up my brokerage, it was the only way to actually incorporate. Which as now, as an independent realtor, you can incorporate.
Yeah.
So I technically wouldn't have needed to open up a brokerage when I did 4 years ago. But at the same time, I'm happy that I did because I'm able to do things in the way that I want to do them. So before, I always had to follow, let's say, what Royal LePage or Keller Williams or whatever brokerage I was with, like I would have to follow their rules, which are great because not all of their rules were bad, but there were rules that I didn't agree with, that I thought that they were very archaic and just things that just don't really apply in today's modern real estate world, right? So I'm just happy that I opened up my own place, that I can do whatever I feel is correct. And I haven't looked back, and I think it was the best decision I've made so far in my career.
Yeah, that's great. And it's going to take time to get to that point.
Which
and
is
I'm
okay.
sure, yeah, but you learned a lot by going through being by yourself,
Yes.
having a team, and now owning your own brokerage. Was that your goal from the start?
It was never my goal. It was never my goal. It's something that I kind of adapted to. Let's say I said to myself, well, this is what I need to do. Like again, fast forwarding 4 years later, I wouldn't have to open up my own brokerage with how taxes and everything can be done right now. But again, that led me to doing it. And I feel that maybe if I could have done it, I could have done it the way that I could now 4 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have opened up my own brokerage. So it kind of worked out for me because I had kind of no choice if I wanted to incorporate, right?
Yeah, and like the same saying, everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
I feel like whatever you've done, yeah, again, for a reason, and it's been successful for you, and I'm sure you're going to build up even more. So what's your next step for your brokerage? Are you chilling? Are you trying to grow as much as possible?
I'm never chilling. That's it's something that a good friend of mine said to me, something that's always stuck by, and he said to me, life is too short to be mediocre. And that always stuck by, and it resonates with me because it's like, why would we want to be the same people tomorrow that we are today? Right. As much as you're happy with yourself today, as much as you're happy with the situation, there could always be something better. You could always strive for something that you don't have today, right? So one of the things that I've always been heavy into, like goals, and just I'm very goal oriented. The problem that I've had, like the drawback, is that sometimes I don't enjoy the goals. Like I go ahead, I'll accomplish it, and I'm like, okay, what's next?
So how do you write down your goals? How do you figure out what your goals are going to be? Because that's something that like I mentioned earlier, I haven't set goals for myself yet. And I feel like that's something that I really need to do, and I'm getting to it. I actually have it in my calendar for next week. To start writing down,
crazy?
Or tomorrow, whatever.
It should be as soon as the podcast is over, man.
All right, so we can run it.
You need to get on that right away. Like, the goals are not going to wait for anybody.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't set them right away, they're just never going to happen.
So how do you set them?
You just got to determine what's important to you. And listen,
small goals and big ones too?
Small goals, big goals. There's going to be things that you change along the way. There's things that, you know what I mean? Like, one of my all-time goals, always, I said to myself, I'd love to buy a Ferrari one day. Mm-hmm. I don't give a shit about that now.
Really?
Like, don't get me wrong. I would absolutely love to have that car, but I don't give a shit about it. Like, it's like now, like I said, my goal is for my kids and my wife to have a home, to have food on their table. That's my goal. Yeah. So, like, obviously being a younger realtor, you're going to have things that are important to you now that later on, they're not going to be very important to you, right? So I guess it's kind of the maturity that kind of you grow into as well, right?
Yeah, my friends and family watching and listening right now, they know that my goal is to have a Lambo. Yeah. Not a big Ferrari guy, more of a Lambo guy, but that's been my goal, and trying to achieve that. I think, like you said, that was your goal, and you mentioning that it's not your goal anymore.
Listen, man,
I'm scared now.
I'll tell you something, and take it however you want. There's probably a lot of people that are going to watch this, and they're going to probably even scratch their heads, but all of that stuff, it doesn't mean shit.
No.
I'm telling you right now, once you have it, you'll realize that it's just so insignificant. Like, I'm telling you, if you make your life and the purpose of what you're doing about a watch, about a car, about a house, it's just, you're going to fall down. It's going to be a never ending cycle, man. It's going to be a never ending cycle. And all it is, it's going to be temporary happiness, because you're going to be like, oh, look at this cool watch, or oh, look at this cool car. And it's going to be cool for that day, the day after, maybe the week after. And then it's going to be like, okay, well, I have it. It's like, I enjoy it, but it's like, does it really make me happier? And I'm telling you, man, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It won't.
That's true. But also, I guess on the flip side is, you've worked so hard to get to that goal. And if that's something, like we were talking about the shoes before, that might be something that's insignificant. I really want this pair of shoes, whatever. Now you have it, and it's like, whatever. But I feel like with a big goal like that, owning a house, buying a fancy car, having those and achieving those goals, is temporary happiness, but it's thinking back in the past to what you did to get to that point, I think makes it a little bit better. But like I do agree. Once you get it, it's insignificant. Like who cares if you have a fancy car?
It is cool once you have it, because it's almost like you see it every day. You can touch it. It's motivation. Like it's almost like I have this because of how hard I worked, because I did all of these things, right? So like I use some of these things as motivation to me, and it's almost like, this is why I need to keep going. This is why I need to continue pushing myself, right? But like, again, I guess maybe it's because I'm older, more mature, or I shifted a little bit. It's like before I used to make it like a point. I went through a period in my life where I was like super into watches. I had like 10 watches, right? And it was just like, I could only wear one watch at a time. So it's like, why do I have all these watches? So I basically sold, like, I think I have like 3 watches now.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? So
I'm not a watch guy.
So it's kind of crazy, because it's like, what's the point? And it, like, again, it's cool. Like you have it, you made it. But again, I feel there's a lot of people that they strive to have these material things, and it's almost like they're compromising their financial well-being just to have them. And that's crazy too, right? But like, listen, man, I'm no one to tell people what to do, what not to do. I think I truly believe to each its own is something awesome, because you should do what makes you happy. I just think that if you're spending a ton of money on something that in reality is insignificant, and it's really going to compromise your well-being, I think it's stupid just to have it.
Yeah. And no, I totally agree with that.
And I see it all the time. Let's say people buy a house, and it's like many times, like I know my client's financial situation, and I'm like, listen, man, I'm like, I would love if you bought this house, because I'm going to get a really nice commission check. But I don't think this is in your best interest. Like, think of like, you're going to have this house and it's going to be cool. It's going to be great. But like, you're not going to be able to live a lifestyle even close to what you live now. You're not going to be able to go on your vacations 2 or 3 times a year. You're not going to be able to, let's say, do this, this, and this, you know what I mean? Because again, through social media and all of these clients, they do end up becoming like friends, people that you once in a while talk to. Like, you get to know them a little bit more, right? So it's like you see what they do. So it's like you can kind of like give them advice, not necessarily as a realtor, because as a realtor you would say buy it, buy it, buy it, but you give them like advice because you really care.
Right.
And there's been many of my clients that have actually said, yeah, you know what? Like, maybe you're right. Maybe I don't need a house this big. Maybe I can buy something a little bit smaller. Maybe I can buy something a little bit less expensive. And listen, clients years down the road, like I just had a client of mine who's actually turned into he's a good friend of mine. He's like, I'm so glad that I didn't buy that like 3,500 square foot house. He ended up buying like a smaller 2,800 square foot house, but him and his family, they take vacations, you know what I mean? They drive a nice vehicle, they go for dinners. He's like, if I would have bought that house, he's like, I would have been so super stressed with like the mortgage rates and everything, because I would have had to really overextend myself, right?
Yeah, and I think that's also why you're so good, because I see your videos online and you're so genuine that you seem to always be in your client's best interest. Like you said, you don't want to convince anyone to come to you. You want them to come to you because they want to come to you.
Yes.
And I think that's very important in this industry and in any industry, because it's not you trying to make some money off of a guy, like you said, oh, he can afford this $2 million house, but it might be more beneficial for you to do a $1.5 million
money
house.
comes and goes, Ryan, but the relationship that you have with people it's going to last a lifetime. So if I truly feel that if you try to take care of people, you try to be honest, it may in the short term not always be the best thing, but in the long term, you will be one of the ones that are still going to be there.
Yeah, because it's super important maintaining relationships. That's exactly what this business is about.
Yes.
It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's about being true and being genuine to yourself. And that's, like you said, there are other people in this industry who don't have that, who, you know, may have a hole that needs to be filled because they're not a good person, but they're making a lot of money and they burn bridges because of it.
Yeah.
And if you can stay genuine and just be a good person, that's probably that's the most important thing in this business. That's what I find, at least.
No, I'm with you 100% on that. Always all these podcasts, everybody's asking me questions. I want to ask you a question because you're a newer realtor. What's been your biggest challenge and struggle since you started in the business?
So I actually spoke about this a little bit on my last one, but the biggest struggle for me is actually just finding clients, right? Because it's a matter of having people trust me, because I have friends, I have family who, who know that I'm in real estate. Maybe they have other real estate agents, maybe they don't, but why would they come to me? Because I'm so new in the business. Maybe I don't know much about real estate. And that's what I need to figure out, right? I sit down every day and I'm sitting at my computer and I'm growing through my business and trying to plan myself and trying to grow and trying to learn. I think that's the biggest thing. It hasn't been easy, as you know, as a realtor in your first year, right? You're mostly doing leases. You're not really doing sales, but it's going to come. So it's finding those people to come in.
But how many new realtors don't want to do leases? They don't want to do them because there's very little money in them. But it's like, for example, my team member, Adrian, he started in the business 3 years ago. And I said, Adrian, you need to do these leases because believe me, I will give it a couple years. These people are going to want to buy. He just did a transaction, $1.3 million off of a lease, off of a client he met off of a lease like a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and that's the biggest thing, right? Is I think for me going into it, the one mindset that I have is you treat every client the same, whether they're buying a $10 million house or they're buying a $1,500 condo.
Goes without
you
saying.
Treat them all the same.
But that's like a typical realtor thing to say, right?
Well, no,
I'm just busting.
Actually, no.
I'm just bothered.
Right? I feel like there are a lot of people that don't do that.
No.
Right? Like you said, he didn't want to do leases. And maybe it's because you had that positive mindset and you sort of, brought him down to the, you need to treat them this way.
No, you know what? In that sense, I have to say Adrian is awesome. He's never said, I don't want to work with this person. He's always said, whatever I got to do, I'm going to do it. But I'm just saying there's a lot of newer realtors that they're kind of like, oh, that's a waste of my time. Yeah. And that's kind of where the problem arises, right? And that's the issue with our business is that people literally think that this shit is selling sunset. They think that it's like a Netflix special and that we're like driving in our fancy cars and you know what I mean? And again, the problem is that this is what other realtors show on social media. They show their fancy house or, well, usually a lot of these people, they don't even have a fancy house. That's the funniest part. But they'll show, let's say, their fancy car that they're making $1,500 a month payments on, or let's say their nice watch or their purse or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? And these are the things that they're showing. And this is another reason why the public hates our industry because they think that we're overpaid babies. You know? And a lot of us are. A lot of us are.
Yeah. But they also don't know the back end stuff of it, right?
Yes.
Like they only see the surface of the social media. Yeah, people watch these shows, and I've had people come up to like, "Oh, it's like selling Beverly Hills or selling." It's not.
Listen,
it's
like
so
glorified.
easy.
It's
like
so
anything.
easy because there's realtors that they won't sell anything for like 3 months, and all of a sudden they'll get a $25,000 commission check. And you know what these people will do? They'll go out and they'll spend that money. Designer clothes, this and that, the other, and they just rent. And which, listen, that's okay if that's what they like. That's okay. But this is a perception that people have that is not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
It's all materialistic.
It's all materialistic, and it's all a show. It's like these people can't, like, they shouldn't be really buying that stuff, because they should be doing other things. They should be investing in a place of their own, or whatever the case may be. But again, getting back to what I was saying earlier, to each its own. Everybody does whatever they're happy, but people just really need to realize that this is hard work. It's really, really hard. We are in charge of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of people's hard-earned money, and we need to take this seriously. The reason why people are going to use you, Ryan, is because you know what the fuck you're doing, because you're good at what you do, not because you have a fancy car or because you parade yourself on social media like a lot of these idiots do. Just focus on the business, focus on learning, try to shadow as many great realtors as possible, try to see the little things that they do day in and day out, and then slowly but surely, it's going to take some time, but you're going to meet one person, you're going to meet the other person, and your client, it's going to be a snowball effect. It does take time, but people are going to use you because you know what you're doing. So if you focus on learning, you'll be okay.
That's good. Yeah, I was actually gonna say we're almost at the end, and I was gonna ask you what's one piece of advice that you would give.
I read your mind.
A new realtor, and you answered my question. So anyway, I really appreciate it, Mario.
No problem.
Where can people find you online for your social medias and all of that?
ArmaniSells.ca on Instagram, and YouTube channel Mario Armani Real Estate Team. Give me a call.
And you also have Armani Realty on your Instagram too.
I do. I have Armani Realty, but it's ArmaniSells.ca is more. It's my personal account. I try to share as much of my day to day, a little bit of family, a lot of work, and just try to have fun with it.
And some mental health stuff too. So if you're struggling, you need someone to talk to.
Yeah, you know what?
Mario's a great guy to reach out to. Reach out to me as well.
Yeah, I always, you gotta reach out
to me, but you can reach out to him too. If
I definitely talk a lot about mental health on my channel. I always post a lot of motivational stuff, and I want to also help people. And it's just not all about real estate. And I feel that's kind of what's a little bit different in, let's say, comparing myself to other realtors.
Right. So thanks. I appreciate that.
Problem.
And
thank you, man.
I guess, thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week.
No bull.
No bull.
No bull.
No bull with no bull. That's it, baby.
That's it.
All right. Take care.